The mug was chipped just slightly at the rim, but I never threw it away. It was the one they always reached for, the one that somehow made their cocoa taste better, their tea feel warmer. I still remember those little fingers wrapping around it, the way their breath would fog up the surface when it was too hot, and they'd blow on it, impatient, always, too eager. I don't know why I made tea that morning, I just did. It was early, the kind of early where the sky still looks bruised with night, and the house felt colder than usual. I boiled the water, steeped. The tea added the honey, just like they used to like. Then I placed the mug gently on the table in the same spot it always sat. I didn't sit down. I just stood there, watching the steam rise and fade, as if it were breathing, as if something in this house still had lungs besides me. That tea went cold. I poured it out hours later, without tasting it, but I did it again the next morning, and the next. I told myself it was habit, but that was a lie. It was hope, stubborn and ridiculous hope. I kept thinking maybe today they'll call. Maybe today they'll remember. Maybe today their world will make space for the woman who once rearranged her entire life around theirs. But days turned into weeks, and still the mug sat there untouched. Eventually I stopped making the tea, but I didn't move the mug. I couldn't. It felt like the last thread connecting me to something real, something sacred. It was more than ceramic. It was memory condensed. It was all the mornings I woke up early to get them ready for school, all the nights I waited up with chamomile for their return. It was love, in a form I could hold even if no one held me back anymore. I used to believe love like that had weight, substance, that it couldn't just disappear. But apparently it can. Apparently it can evaporate like steam from a forgotten mug vanishing before your eyes, leaving behind only a wet ring on the table. No warmth, no scent, just proof that something had once been there. There's a pain in realizing you're no longer central, no longer orbit-worthy. They once said I was their whole world. I remember the way they clung to me at night, terrified of monsters, and how my hand in theirs made the darkness go away. I used to be gravity. I used to be home. Now I feel like an old house no one visits, too creaky, too out of date, too full of ghosts they no longer want to confront. I don't hate them. God, I wish I could. It would make this easier. It's harder to carry pain when it's still wrapped in love. And I do still love them deeply, fiercely, foolishly. I think part of me always will. But sometimes that love feels more like a wound that won't clot. Every ignored call, every missed birthday, every silence, it reopens the cut, and I bleed in quiet places. Sometimes I wonder what I did wrong. Was I too soft, too available? Did I love too loudly and now they crave quiet? Or did I not prepare them for the truth that the world wouldn't love them like I did, that no one would hold their heartbreak like I would? Maybe I didn't fail them. Maybe I just became too inconvenient for their current life, like a mug that no longer matches the new dishes. Sentimental, sure, but not functional, replaceable. The worst part is I still get up early. I still set the table for one more than I need. Not because I think they'll come, not anymore, but because part of me can't stop being their mother. It's not a switch. It's not something you undo. Even when they outgrow you, even when they forget you, even when their world builds itself away from yours, the mother remains, like a lighthouse still shining even when no ships pass by anymore. And maybe that's what love is. A light that stays on even when no one's looking, even when it starts to burn itself out. I don't know. I just know the mug is still there, empty, waiting, like me. I used to know the sound of their footsteps, the way they ran through the house like joy on 2 feet, But more than anything, it was their voice that I carried with me, tucked away like a pressed flower in the folds of memory. The first time they said, "Mama," I cried. Not because it was unexpected, I had waited for it, longed for. It whispered it in their ear every day until it echoed back. I cried because it felt like the world had finally answered me. I wasn't invisible. I was someone's whole sky. That tiny voice lit up corners of me I didn't even know were dark. Now the silence is louder than any scream. The phone sits beside me like an accusation, like a monument to what used to be. I look at it more than I should. I pretend to be checking the time, the weather, an old recipe, but really I'm checking for them. A message, a missed call, anything. It's been months. I know that. And still I check, because the ache doesn't keep time, and neither does hope. I remember when their voice filled every space in the house, the way they'd call out for me even from the next room, even when I wasn't far. Just the comfort of hearing me answer, "I'm here." That was enough. I used to hum lullabies while folding their laundry, and they'd hum along without realizing it. Their voice was woven into everything, the rhythm of the day, the music of my life. Now the silence plays on repeat, and I don't know how to dance to it. Sometimes I replay old voicemails, the ones I refuse to delete, little snippets from years ago. "Hi, Mom, just calling to say I love you. Can you send me that lasagna recipe? Sorry I missed your call. I'll call you back later." They never did, but I still listen to those echoes. It's like tracing the shape of a memory with your fingers in the dark. You can't see it, but you know it was real. They used to light up when they saw me, that unmistakable glow in their eyes, that lunge into my arms like they couldn't wait to be close again. I didn't need anything else. Not flowers, not gifts, not thanks. Just that voice, that joy, that proof that I mattered. And now if I call, I get voicemail. If I text, I get read and ignored. If I say I miss them, I get nothing back at all. It makes you question your worth, this kind of silence. Not just as a mother, but as a person. You start to shrink. You become careful with your emotions, afraid that even your love has become a burden. I worry that every message I send is another weight around their neck. So I send fewer, shorter, colder, but even those go unanswered. It's like shouting across a canyon and hearing nothing but your own breath come back. And I can't help but ask myself, when did my voice stop mattering to them? When did the sound of me become something to turn down, tune out, shut off? There's a moment that haunts me not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. It was a holiday, and I sent them a message, just a simple one. Thinking of you today. I love you. And nothing came back. Not that day, not the next, not ever. I stared at that little gray check mark until my eyes burned. That tiny symbol meant to confirm connection became the symbol of absence. They saw it. They just didn't respond. And I tried to be understanding. I told myself they were busy, that their job was demanding, that life got in the way. But over time it became clearer it wasn't life that got in the way. It was me. I had become the inconvenience, the old chapter, the background noise to be faded out in the mix of their new, louder life. So I stopped calling. I let the silence settle like dust. And yet their voice, the one that used to light me up, it still lives in me. Sometimes I think I hear it in the wind, in the clink of a spoon against a mug, in the hush before I fall asleep. It's still here, even if they aren't. And I don't know what hurts more, that they no longer say I love you, or that I still say it quietly to a room that never answers back. I always remembered their birthdays, every single one, from the first trembling breath they took to the day they turned 35. I kept every invitation, every cake photo, every silly little handmade crown. I threw them parties, even when we didn't have much taped streamers to peeling walls, baked lopsided cakes from scratch, turned second-hand toys into treasure. Their joy was enough. Their smile when they blew out the candles made everything else feel irrelevant. Money was tight. My back ached. But when they were happy, the world was right. This year, I woke up early on their birthday just like I always did and made a card. Handwritten, simple, honest. I even slipped in an old photo of us from when they were 7 and still believed in magic and mothers. I mailed it early just in case. And then I waited. I didn't expect a big gesture. Not flowers, not gifts. Just a call, a voice, a simple, "Thank you, Mom." The day came and went. No call. Not even a message. And for the first time in 35 years, I was the only one who remembered. I sat by the window that night, holding the phone like it might vibrate if I wished hard enough. I thought about calling them. I even typed out the number, but I didn't press it. I couldn't. There's a particular shame in asking to be remembered, a humiliation in needing to remind someone that you exist, especially someone you once taught how to tie their shoes and zip up their coat and dream bigger than the sky. The worst part is, I still lit a candle. I still whispered happy birthday into the empty room, and I still imagined what I would have said if they had answered. I pictured it all, the small talk, the laughter I would have pretended to feel, the stories I would have told. I practiced my smile in the mirror just in case they FaceTimed. But my face stayed unseen. My voice stayed unheard. And the candle melted into nothing but a pool of wax, just like I had. How many times did I stay up baking for their birthdays? How many sleepovers did I host? How many decorations did I tape to the walls? With fingers blistered from work and worry. I made paper crowns when we couldn't afford real ones. I sang louder when no one else sang. I celebrated them loudly, proudly, faithfully, every single year. Even the years they were too embarrassed by me to invite their friends over. Even the teenage years when they barely spoke to me. I still showed up with balloons and their favorite meal. Because that's what love is. It's remembering. It's showing up, even when it's not convenient, especially then. And now they don't even remember I'm here. I didn't cry that night. I thought I would. I thought the tears would come like they always do, quiet, hot, full of all the things I don't say. But instead I just felt hollow, like someone had scooped the center out of me and left the skin behind. I stared out the window for a long time, watched as a neighbor's porch light flickered on, and someone came home to a hug, to a voice calling their name to warmth. I used to have that. I used to be the reason the lights were on and the house was warm. Now I am a flicker, a forgotten switch in a room no one enters anymore. The next morning I told myself it didn't matter, that it was just a day, that maybe they had meant to call and just forgot, that people get busy, that children grow up. I told myself all the things we tell ourselves to soften the sting. But deep down I knew. It wasn't about forgetting the date. It was about forgetting the person. I used to be the calendar, the compass, the keeper of time and tradition. And now, I'm none of those things. Now I am a number they didn't dial, a card they didn't open, a mother they didn't think of. And yet I still remember every second of their life, every tooth they lost, every heartbreak they whispered through tears on my shoulder, every laugh, every fever, every night they needed me. I remember because I was there. But they weren't here for mine. 3 birthdays in a row now. Not a call, not even a text. I don't need cake. I don't need gifts. I just wanted to matter, just enough for 5 minutes of their time. but it seems that even that is too much now. I opened the closet the other day, not the one with my clothes, but the old cedar one, with the stiff hinges and the scent of mothballs and memory. Inside were boxes, neatly stacked, carefully labeled, untouched for years. Gifts, so many gifts. Things I'd bought with them in mind. A sweater in a color they once said they loved. A book they mentioned offhand during a call 2 Christmases ago. Toys from when they had children of their own, things I picked up at a yard sale and cleaned until they gleamed, ready to be handed over with pride. None of it was ever given, because they stopped visiting, stopped coming for holidays. Always a reason, always an apology. Next year, for sure. Things are hectic right now. We're still settling in, but the years stacked like those boxes, silent, dusty, unopened. I used to wrap the gifts anyway, just in case. Even when I knew they wouldn't come, I still tied ribbons and stuck labels and imagined their smile. I thought maybe if I was prepared, it would invite them back, as if love could be bait, as if memory could be bribed. It's strange the way you can still love someone with your hands, even when your heart has gone sore with waiting. My fingers still curled with care around the ribbon, still smoothed the creases from the wrapping paper, still wrote their name in my neatest handwriting, as though they were 7 again, as though the act itself could make it true. And now the closet holds years of unopened love. Every time I clean, I consider throwing it all away, donating the gifts, clearing the space. But I can't, not because I'm holding on to hope not anymore, but because it feels like a betrayal of who I used to be. That woman who believed that family meant showing up even when they didn't. That mother who thought love given freely and quietly would eventually come back home. They once said I knew them better than anyone, that no one got them the way I did. I remember the pride in their voice, like being known by me was a comfort, a compass. And I held that role like a sacred duty, watching, listening, collecting every detail. I remembered their favorite colors, their childhood fears, their dreams, their dislikes. I kept mental lists. I studied them with the devotion that no school ever taught me. It came naturally. It came from love. And now I don't even know where they live. Not precisely. I have a city, maybe a vague street name from an old envelope, but no address I'm allowed to use. No door I can knock on without notice. Once I sent a package anyway, one of the gifts from the closet. It was returned, not at this address. No note, no update, no explanation. I stood in my hallway holding that unopened box, staring at my own handwriting. I traced the letters of their name with my thumb until the cardboard softened under the pressure. I didn't cry, not right away. I just sat down on the floor with it in my lap, like a mother cradling something lifeless, something too small to be grief, too big to be denial. They live somewhere out there in a place I'm no longer part of. And the truth that has taken me the longest to swallow is this: they built that world without me. They invited new people in, new friends, new family, a new rhythm, a new silence that doesn't include my voice. And I live in a world still filled with the remnants of them. The drawings on the fridge I never took down, the birthday cards I kept in a drawer, the half-finished sweater I was knitting for a winter visit that never happened. My world is haunted by someone who is still alive, someone who simply left. There's no word for this kind of abandonment. If a spouse leaves, you're divorced. If a parent dies, you're orphaned. But when a child forgets you while you're still here, still breathing, still loving, there's no word for that. Only silence. Only a closet full of gifts that will never find their hands. And so I keep them, not because I think they'll return, but because each box is a memory I'm not ready to let go of. Not yet. maybe never. There was a night long before the silence, when they were small and feverish, their forehead burning against my palm, their tiny body curled into mine, like they were trying to return to the womb. I stayed up all night holding them, whispering lullabies, damp cloth pressed to their forehead, counting the seconds between each breath, like it was sacred. I remember thinking, if anything ever happened to them, I would stop breathing too. That was the depth of it, the terrifying, overwhelming force of motherhood. My whole sense of self wrapped in their warmth and their aliveness. They cried out for me, then not for medicine, not for comfort, not for logic, but for me. Because back then I was the answer, the cure, the safest place they knew. Now when I cry, no one comes. It's strange how the roles reverse without permission, how one day you're the strong one, and the next you're the one curled under the blanket, waiting for a knock that never comes. I got sick last winter. Not dangerously, but bad enough to scare me. Aching joints, a high fever dizziness that made the room spin. I lay in bed for 2 days without food. I texted them, just once, not even asking for help, just saying I wasn't feeling well, just wanted to hear their voice. No reply. I told myself they were busy, but the truth screamed louder than any excuse they knew, and they didn't come. I once slept on hospital floors for them, sat for hours in waiting rooms with a purse full of snacks and a heart full of fear. I remember kissing their scraped knees, packing emergency kits in the car, memorizing their allergies, their blood type, their favorite cartoon to calm them down after shots. Now I take myself to the doctor, alone. I sit quietly in waiting rooms and say no emergency contact on the forms. The nurse always looks up surprised. I see the pause in their pen, the silent question they don't ask, and I smile. Because if I don't smile, I might not stop crying. I was the first to hear them cry, and now I cry into my pillow so the walls won't echo it back to me. There's something sharp about that, the way care turns into absence. The way love can be so full it spills over, and then one day the cup is bone dry. I don't know when it happened. It wasn't a single moment. It was dozens of little ones. Fewer calls, shorter visits, excuses wrapped in politeness. Then eventually, nothing. I think they believe I'm fine, that I have my own life, that I don't need them the way I once did. Maybe they think I've moved on like they have. But the truth is, I never wanted to move on. I just wanted to move with them, to stay in their orbit even at a distance, to be called when they were sad or sick or tired or proud. Instead, I'm the dust left behind when the comet goes blazing toward some other galaxy. And I know they have their own lives now, their own homes, their own families, their own problems. But I was never looking to be their world again. Just a part of it, a corner, a call every Sunday, a picture of their dinner with the words, "Thought of you," something, anything. Instead, I hold on to scraps, memories of little hands grabbing mine, of tear-streaked cheeks on my shoulder, of whispered, "I love you, mamas," that made me feel like I was holding the sun. Those hands don't reach for me anymore. And that shoulder mine now carries a weight it never trained for the heaviness of being remembered by no one. And yet I still wait, still hope, still keep their baby blanket in the drawer beside my bed, because once I was the only one who could soothe their cries. Now I am the only one who hears my own. The last time they said "I love you" is a memory I return to, like a worn prayer, soft at the edges, repeated so many times that I've nearly blurred the details, but not the words. No, those 3 words still sit in my chest like a faint ember, the only heat left in a long, cold room. It wasn't even a special moment, not a birthday, not a holiday, not a grand gesture. It was casual, easy, They were rushing off the phone already halfway out the door. "Okay, talk later, love you," they said, like they always used to, like it was second nature. I remember smiling as I hung up. It felt like nothing and everything all at once. That was 5 years ago. I didn't know it would be the last time I'd hear it, because after that the conversations grew thinner, shorter, less intimate. The warmth faded slowly, not all at once. It's funny how you don't always notice when something begins to die. You notice when it's already gone, when you reach for it, and all you touch is air. And now I play that last, "I love you" like a recording over and over in my mind. The tone, the inflection, the background noise, maybe keys jangling, maybe a door creaking open. Sometimes I wonder if they even meant it, or if it was just habit, something people say without thinking. But I thought about it. I still do. And I say it still, in the dark, in the quiet. When I pass their old room and catch sight of the posters still on the wall, "I love you," I whisper, to the air, to the past, to the absence. I don't know what I did wrong. I comb through the years like someone searching for a lost item in the sand, clawing at moments, second-guessing decisions. Did I push too much? Did I not let go enough? Was I too present, too involved, too emotionally clumsy in my love? Or was I simply a mirror they no longer wished to look into, a reminder of a self they've outgrown? I wonder if they even remember that last "I love you." I wonder if they ever replay it the way I do, if they miss me in the quiet hours when the world slows down and there's nothing left but breath and memory. I imagine them sometimes cooking dinner, laughing with friends, planning vacations, whole lives unfolding, ones I will never be part of, and I try not to resent it. I try. Because love, real love, doesn't envy. It doesn't demand. But still it hurts to know they go on without me, that their world spins just fine, with no thought of the woman who once sang them to sleep during storms. There's something about that silence, the one that follows the last "I love you," that feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. You keep expecting an echo, but none comes. Just wind, just the sound of your own heart beating quietly against the weight of nothing. Sometimes I think about writing to them, not a letter to send, just one to write, to get it all out, to say, "Do you remember? Do you know what it meant to me, the way you used to run into my arms like I was the sun, but I never do, because I know they've moved on. And I don't want to be the voice that pulls at their guilt if they even feel it. So instead, I carry the words. I fold them into my day. I stir them into my tea. I tuck them into the corner of my pillowcase. I love you," said once, heard 1,000 times, echoed forever in a room that never answers back. I never got a final goodbye. No conversation, no closure. Just the slow drift of someone walking away without realizing they left the door wide open behind them. I've stood in that doorway for years now, hoping they'll glance back, even once. But they never do. And so I stay, not because I'm waiting anymore, but because I don't know where else to go with all this love that has nowhere to land. It was a simple idea to visit. I hadn't seen them in almost 2 years, and though the phone had grown cold and the messages short, I told myself it was just life, just busyness. So I packed a small bag, bought a modest bouquet from the grocery store, and took the long bus ride across town. I rehearsed everything on the way. My smile, my tone, my reasons. I even imagined how surprised and happy they'd be. I pictured them opening the door, arms wide, guilt melting into warmth. I told myself mothers are always welcome, even when they're unexpected. But when I knocked, no one answered. I stood there, flowers trembling in my hand, the sun pressing heavy on my back. I knocked again, waited. A shadow moved behind the curtain, but the door stayed shut. I rang the bell. Nothing. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself maybe they were out. Maybe the bell was broken. Maybe they were sleeping or had headphones in. I waited on the steps for almost an hour. The flowers wilted in the heat just a little, and so did I. Finally, I left the bouquet by the door. No note, just petals and silence. I walked back down the path with a spine that felt like glass. I didn't cry on the bus. I just stared at my own reflection in the window, a woman who once brought life into the world and now couldn't even bring herself into her child's home. That visit, or whatever it was, marked something in me, like a page finally turned. There was no fight, no loud confrontation, no drama. Just a door that didn't open, a presence that wasn't acknowledged, and the slow realization that sometimes love doesn't fade, it just gets locked out. I don't know if they knew I was there. Maybe they were embarrassed. Maybe they thought it would be too awkward. Maybe someone else told them to ignore it. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. Intentions don't dry tears. Silence doesn't explain itself. When I got home, I unpacked the bag I never used. I put the extra toothbrush back in the drawer, hung up the cardigan I wore just in case they invited me to stay, and I placed the shoes, the ones I wore, when they took their first steps, back in the corner by the door. 'Cause I had thought maybe we could start again. But it's hard to start anything when the door never opens. That was the last time I tried to visit. Something inside me shifted after that. Not broken exactly, just quieter, more careful. Like a door inside me began to close too. Not out of anger, never anger, but out of something softer, sadder. A kind of resignation, a kind of release. I used to be the person they ran to when the world was too big. Now I'm the knock they don't answer, the voice on the other side of a door they've chosen to forget. And yet I still dream about it sometimes, that same door opening, their face shocked and sorry, the flowers in their hands revived. In the dream they say I didn't know. In the dream they say, come in. In the dream I do. But dreams aren't doors, and apologies unspoken don't echo. So now, when I pass that closet by the front door, I pause just a little. I still have the extra key I had made for them back when they were younger. I used to imagine giving it to them as a sign that my home would always be theirs. I hold it sometimes, the cold metal warming in my palm, useless now. A key to a door that was never meant to open again. Still, I haven't thrown it away. Because somewhere deep down, I think I still believe in doors. Even if I've stopped knocking. There's a stack of boxes in my bedroom closet. Not the kind filled with clothes or clutter, but the kind filled with stories. Their stories. My stories. Our stories. A tiny baby shoe still with the worn crease where their heel used to rest. A macaroni necklace from first grade that smelled faintly of glue for years. Drawings with stick figures and oversized hearts labeled Mommy. Every photo ever taken of their childhood is in there, organized by year, labeled with care. Tooth fairy notes, birthday cards, graduation programs, college acceptance letters, every little victory, every tender moment, every precious scrap they ever gave me. I saved it all. I think I believed that one day they'd want to look through it with me, that we'd sit side by side, laugh at their crooked handwriting, cry over old school plays, remember who we used to be. That I could remind them gently, quietly, of how deeply I loved them, how much of my life I spent building theirs. But the boxes remain unopened. They don't ask about the past. They don't want to see the treasures I guarded like sacred relics. They've moved on. built new shelves and new homes filled them with new photos, none of which include me. And yet I can't bring myself to throw any of it away. I tell myself that maybe one day after I'm gone, they'll open the boxes. Maybe they'll find a note tucked inside. Maybe they'll hold the tiny shoe and remember the day they took their first step. Maybe they'll realize that every inch of their growing up was witnessed by someone who never stopped watching, never stopped caring, never stopped remembering. There's an ache in loving someone who forgets you while you still carry everything they've ever done. Sometimes I sit with the boxes. I take out a drawing or a card, hold it against my chest like a relic, and close my eyes. It's a way of going back. Back to when I mattered. Back to the days when their joy was my purpose. When I had meaning simply because I was theirs. I think about the things I never got to put in those boxes. The wedding invitation I never received. The baby photo of my grandchild I saw on someone else's Facebook page. The holidays spent alone while they posted pictures with people I've never met. Their new life fully formed, fully thriving, and fully out of reach. I used to imagine the moment I'd pass these boxes on, the ceremony of it. Here, take this. It's your childhood. I kept it safe. I thought they'd be moved, grateful, touched. But now I know better. Now I know they see the past as weight, clutter, something to be left behind, not carried. Still, I carry it. I carry it in the bend of my back, in the tiredness behind my eyes, in the silence that echoes after I say their name aloud to no one. I carry it in my dreams, in the meals I still cook for, one more than I need in the way I instinctively check my phone on Sunday mornings back when they used to call. And yet, I keep the boxes tidy, just in case. Not for them, maybe not even for me, but for the part of me that still believes love deserves to be remembered, that someone someday should know I was here, that I gave everything, that I didn't vanish quietly into the cracks of their memory. They once asked me when they were little why I saved everything. You even keep the napkin I drew on, they laughed. And I said, because to me it's a piece of you. They didn't understand then. Maybe they still don't. But motherhood is made of pieces, moments, gestures, quiet sacrifices no one sees. And we hold on to them not because we expect anything in return, but because that's what love does. It remembers. And even if they've forgotten, I haven't. I won't. It wasn't an easy decision giving up the house. That little place where every wall echoed with laughter tantrums, music, and midnight whispers. But it was time. The stairs had become too steep, the winters too cruel, and the loneliness too loud. I told myself it was for the best, that I'd be closer to help, that I'd be looked after. I sold the house and moved into a small room in an assisted living facility. Nothing fancy, just enough space for a bed, a chair, and a few framed photos, the ones I clung to like lifelines. I thought maybe they'd visit, that losing the home they grew up in would awaken something, a tug, a thread of memory too strong to ignore. But all I got was a text. Hope the move went okay. Let me know if you need anything. I stared at those words for so long I thought they'd disappear. Let me know if you need anything. What I needed was something they no longer offered presence. Time. The sound of their voice without me begging for it. What I needed was to not feel like a stranger in the life I built around them. My room now smells of hand sanitizer and cafeteria food. My neighbors are kind, mostly. We play cards sometimes. The staff brings my pills in little cups. But it's not home. It never will be. Home was the smell of Sunday roast in the oven, the sound of them thudding down the hallway, the half-finished puzzles on the dining table, the coat they always forgot to hang up. Sometimes I dream of the house. I walk through it barefoot, my fingers brushing along the walls, like I'm saying goodbye again and again. I open closets and see old coats still hanging, waiting to be worn. I hear their laughter from the backyard. And then I wake up, and I'm in a sterile room with beige walls and a blinking red emergency cord. I used to walk the halls hoping to see a familiar face, hoping maybe they'd surprise me, that they'd appear with coffee in hand, awkward but earnest. Hey, thought I'd stop by, but they never did. Once I even made an extra cup of tea when the staff let me use the common kitchen, just in case. I drank both. The hardest part is the way the nurses smile at me, so gently, like I'm something fragile, like they know I'm waiting for someone who doesn't come. They don't ask questions, but I see the pity behind their eyes. I want to scream sometimes to tell them I mattered once. I had a life. I had someone who called me their whole world, but I say nothing, because saying it out loud makes it more real. There was one nurse, young and kind, who asked if I had family nearby. I said yes, though I wasn't sure if it was true anymore. Technically, they're in the same city, but emotionally they're on another planet. I gave her their name anyway, and she wrote it on the emergency contact form. It felt like writing fiction. Some of the residents here get weekly visitors, children who bring flowers, grandchildren who color in the corner. The noise, the joy it makes, the silence in my room feel louder. I always smile at the children. I say hello, I wave. I pretend I don't ache. I left behind more than a house. I left behind the kitchen where I once taught them to cook, the living room, where we watched movies under shared blankets, the front porch where I waited for them to return home from dates, parties, exams, the tree we planted together when they were 7. It still blooms every spring, without me. They haven't asked how I'm doing here, haven't seen the room I now call home, haven't asked if I sleep well, if I'm making friends, if I feel okay. I don't think they want to know. I used to believe I was a part of their foundation, someone who could never be removed without the whole structure shaking. But now I know better. I was a scaffolding, necessary once, then discarded. Still, I keep a framed photo of them by my bed, their graduation beaming with pride, arms flung around me like I was everything. I look at it every night, and sometimes I whisper I'm still here, just in case you remember. We were sitting in a circle at the community room, some of us knitting, others just sipping tea when someone asked how many grandchildren I had. I hesitated for a moment too long. It was the kind of question that used to light me up, that I once answered with pictures, with stories, with pride, that made my voice rise like a song. But now I lie. I told them they live far away, but they're doing well. I smiled, the kind of smile you put on like a winter coat, stiff zipped up too high, designed more for protection than warmth. One of the other women nodded sympathetically. She told me her children call every week. Like clockwork, she said, with a laugh that was meant to sound humble, but landed like a bell toll in my chest. I told myself later that it didn't matter, that some families stay close and others drift, that my child is busy, that they love me in their own way, that not every relationship looks the same. But the truth sat heavy in my bones that night. Truth doesn't care about excuses. Because the real truth, I lied again last week, and the week before. I've built a version of my child for the outside world, one who visits, who calls, who sends cards on Mother's Day, one who remembers, one who cares. I speak of them as if they're still close to me, as if the thread is still intact. I protect their image, like I used to protect their sleep, their dreams, their innocence. Because I don't want anyone to see what's been lost. There's shame in being forgotten. Not the sharp kind that demands apology, but the slow, suffocating kind that seeps into your identity. If your own child can let go of you so easily, what does that say about you? About your worth? About the years you gave the love you poured out, like an endless stream? I told myself I was being noble, that not speaking ill of them was the motherly thing to do. But it wasn't nobility. It was fear. Fear of hearing my own voice say out loud that I'm alone. That the one person who once wrapped their arms around me and whispered, "You're my whole world now," forgets my birthday, forgets my voice, forgets me. So I tell the same story. I polish it and present it like good silver. They're doing great. They're always busy. They sent me a book last month. No one asks to see the book. No one needs to know that it never came. They just smile and say, "That's nice." And for a moment, I get to pretend that the story is real. I think we all lie in here in little ways. We all soften the loneliness, disguise the distance, turn absence into something palatable. Because to say the truth plainly, my child has abandoned me, is to invite a grief that has no polite container. It spills, it floods, it stains. So I keep lying. To them if they ever ask, to others when they make small talk, but mostly to myself in the quiet moments before sleep. I'm fine. They'll call soon. They still love me. Sometimes I imagine telling the truth, really telling it, saying I haven't heard their voice in over a year. They didn't visit when I moved. They didn't ask what room I'm in. But then I picture the look on someone's face, that awkward mix of pity and discomfort. And I stay silent, because silence is easier than making someone else uncomfortable with my reality. There's a particular kind of loneliness in pretending you're not lonely. It's not just about missing someone. It's about erasing your own pain so no one else has to feel it. It's about holding up a photo and saying, "Aren't they beautiful?" while inside you're screaming, "Why don't they come see me?" But I keep holding up the photo. Keep lying about the calls that never come. Keep pretending that somewhere out there my child still carries me in their heart. Because if I say otherwise, it becomes true. And I'm not ready for that. My hands remember everything. More than my eyes, more than my voice, more than even my memory on days when the edges blur. My hands remember. They remember tying shoelaces that refuse to stay knotted, wiping faces sticky with jam, buttoning little coats while cold wind crept under the door. They remember cradling feverish foreheads, braiding hair, mending torn knees, and torn hearts alike. These hands were once a whole world of safety, a shelter, a map, a home. Now they tremble when I hold a spoon. I stand at the sink sometimes and watch them shake as I try to rinse a plate, and I wonder how these same fingers once lifted a child with ease. How they once carried bags of groceries, wrapped birthday gifts, tucked bedtime covers under tiny chins. How they painted walls and stirred pots and dried tears. Now they fumble with zippers and drop pens. They ache in the morning and swell at night. I look down at them and barely recognize them. But they remember with a tenderness that breaks me. They remember how to care even when there's no one left to receive it. There's a towel in my drawer, soft worn thin from when they were a baby. I kept it without realizing why. It was the one I always used to wrap them after baths. I'd hold them close, water dripping down my chest, their giggles echoing in the bathroom while I whispered, "You're safe, you're warm, you're mine." I folded that towel the other day and pressed it to my cheek. My hands knew exactly how to fold it, where the corners met, how to tuck it just right. Muscle memory of love. Even now they crave the shape of caregiving. They ache to hold, to serve, to soothe. But there's no one left to care for. These days, I wrap blankets around my own shoulders. I spoon soup into my own bowl. I sit in my chair with my hands curled in my lap like they're waiting for instructions, waiting to be needed. But no one asks anymore. No one says, "Can you help me with this? Can you make that thing you used to make? Can I come over?" I was a mother who lived through her fingertips' gentle touches on backs, quiet comfort in a held hand. I didn't speak loudly. I didn't demand much. But I showed love, with every dish washed, every lunch packed, every forehead kissed, when they thought I'd already gone. And now my hands are still, not for lack of desire, but because there's nothing left to do. They sent me a gift once about 2 years ago, a digital photo frame. It was supposed to rotate through pictures of them, their life, their family. I set it up on the dresser, watched it blink to life. It showed a few photos, at first smiling faces I barely recognized anymore. Their partner, their children, rooms I'd never been in, moments I wasn't part of. Then the screen froze, glitched, eventually went black. I never asked them to fix it. It felt symbolic somehow, a piece of connection that couldn't maintain itself, a window into a world I wasn't meant to belong to. And I didn't want to be the burden that asked for more. That begged for a tech fix, just to see a smile that didn't belong to me anymore. So now it sits there, dark. My hands haven't touched it in months. But every time I dust it gently like it might wake up again, I remember the way they used to place their tiny palm in mine without question. Total trust, total dependence, that little weight I would give anything to hold again. Now no one holds my hand, not even in the hallway when I walk slower than I used to, not even when I have to steady myself on the railings. People are kind, yes, but they don't know me. Not the way my child once did, not the way I once thought they always would. Still, these hands remember. They remember lullabies and laundry. They remember first steps and last hugs. They remember being needed. And they are tired now, not from work, but from waiting. I met their new partner only once. It was brief, awkward, and cold in a way I wasn't prepared for. We were in a cafe, one they'd chosen far from where I lived, and I had made the trip wearing the necklace they once gave me for Mother's Day, foolishly thinking it might spark something, a memory, a smile, a sign that I still meant something. They walked in holding hands, bright-eyed, confident, and when they introduced me, it wasn't, "This is my mother." It was, "This is my name." No warmth, no sense of history, no gentle trace of all we'd shared. Just a name, like I was a stranger they'd agreed to meet for lunch. The partners smiled, polite but distracted. They sat across from me and talked about their new apartment, their vacations, their mutual friends. I smiled when expected, nodded at the right moments, even laughed once or twice. But the whole time I was shrinking, not visibly, not so anyone would notice, but inside, quietly folding into myself like a letter no one would ever open again. They didn't ask how I was, not really. Not in a way that required an honest answer. They didn't ask how I was sleeping in the new place, or if I missed the old house. They didn't ask about my health or the old dog I had to give away before moving. I might as well have been another obligation on their calendar, something to check off a chore disguised as a reunion. And so I kept my voice light, my questions shallow. I didn't want to scare them with my need, didn't want to be that mother, the one who clings, the one who guilts, the one who doesn't respect boundaries. But inside I was screaming, "See me, please. Just once look at me like you used to." There was a moment, just one, where their eyes met mine and something flickered. Recognition, maybe? Or guilt? Or something even softer, like hesitation. I opened my mouth thinking I might say something real, something brave. But then the partner looked up, smiling, and whatever was between us vanished like smoke. We hugged goodbye in the parking lot. That strange, stiff embrace you give to someone you think you should still care about, but don't know how to anymore. They promised to call. They didn't. I told them it was so nice to meet their partner. It wasn't. I cried in the taxi. Not because they were happy, that part I could have learned to celebrate, but because I was no longer part of that happiness. Because they had built something new, and it didn't need me. I wasn't woven into it. I was a thread they'd snipped long ago. I walked into my room that night and looked at the photos on the shelf, the ones where they're laughing, covered in birthday cake, or posing in a Halloween costume we made together. I wondered if their partner knew those stories, if they'd ever seen the version of them that only I could know, the scraped knees, the night terrors, the first heartbreak they sobbed through on my lap. Probably not. I've become a character in their past, someone they edit depending on the audience, someone they introduce only when necessary and never with the whole truth. I'm not their home anymore. I'm a footnote. And I suppose I could learn to live with that, the way we all eventually learn to live with faded roles. But what cuts deepest is how casually it happened, how seamless the transition was. One day I was the center of their universe, and now I'm something to explain, or worse, to ignore. I used to dream of growing old surrounded by family, of big dinners where stories were passed down and laughter echoed, like it did when they were young. I used to think I'd be welcomed, even cherished, by whoever they chose to love, that they'd see me as part of the package, not something to be set aside. But I was wrong. And now I know better than to show up uninvited. Now I know there are doors I am not meant to walk through, rooms I will never be offered a seat in. Still, I keep the photos on the shelf. Still, I remember every story, even if no one ever asks to hear them again. I don't think they ever realized how often I said yes, how many times I whispered it when my body wanted to scream no, how many late nights I stayed up sewing costumes, editing essays, driving them to far-flung events on empty gas and borrowed energy. How many small dreams I packed away quietly so theirs could have room to grow. I said yes to overtime so they could have brand-name shoes. I said yes to missed vacations so they could attend dance camp, soccer camp, band camp. I said yes to the smaller slice, the last piece, the broken half. Always the broken half. I didn't resent it then. Not at all. It felt like love. And maybe it was. But now when I ask for something, a visit, a phone call, even just a reply, all I hear is, I can't right now. The first few times I believed it. Everyone's busy. I understand that. Jobs, families, schedules, mental health. I get it. I waited. I gave them space. I said, it's okay, sweetheart. Another time. But another time never came. Eventually, I stopped asking for anything that might feel like a burden. I'd send a photo of the garden and say, look what bloomed today. No reply. I'd forward an article I thought they'd like, left on read. I'd leave voicemails with just my voice soft and short, not desperate, just present. Nothing. I started to wonder if I was being punished for all those years of saying yes. If by never showing them my limits, I accidentally taught them that I had none, that I didn't need boundaries or rest or reciprocation, that I would always be available, always forgiving, always soft. And maybe I was. Maybe I gave them a version of love that felt so constant, so unquestioning, it became invisible, like air, like background noise, like something they didn't need to notice until it was gone. Now when I say I miss you, the silence that follows feels heavier than any no. At least no is a sentence. Silence is a conclusion. I told myself for years that motherhood was about sacrifice, that love was measured in quiet endurance. And maybe that's still true, but sometimes I wish I had said no more often, not out of selfishness, but to show them that my energy was finite, that I had needs too, that love is not a one-way street paved only by the mother's feet. There's a scar on my thumb from the time I stayed up fixing the hem on their prom outfit. They never noticed it. I didn't mention it, but I feel it now sometimes when I stir my tea, a small ghostly reminder of how much I once gave without ever being asked. And now when I ask gently, hesitantly, I get excuses, postponements, polite dismissals dressed up as independence. I know they think I'm strong, that I'm fine on my own, that I don't need them the way I used to. But they're wrong. I don't need help. I need presence. I need the choice to say yes or no. I need to feel like I still matter, not because I'm useful, but because I exist. I used to believe love was about saying yes no matter what. Now I'm learning that love also needs to be heard, needs to be held, reflected, valued, not just poured out until there's nothing left. But it might be too late to teach that now. And so I stop asking, not because I no longer want them, but because I no longer want to be the one always reaching, always bending. I've spent a lifetime curving myself into shapes that fit their world. Now I sit upright, even when it's lonely. The next time they say I can't right now, I won't argue. I'll just nod, even if they can't see it, even if they don't know. Because sometimes the most painful kind of no is the one that comes after a lifetime of yes. It didn't happen with a bang. No slammed doors, no shouted words, no final straw hurled into the air like a curse. It happened quietly, a slow erosion, a gentle undoing, the kind of goodbye that doesn't announce itself, just drifts in like dusk until you realize the day is already gone. There was a morning when I opened my messaging app and scrolled through our thread. I had sent 10 messages over the past few months, little things, a funny article, a memory that made me smile, a photo of the tree in the old backyard blooming early, simple, loving, patient things. None of them were answered. I stared at the blue check marks, all of them marked seen, and I felt something inside me sink, not dramatically, not tragically, just finally. I didn't send the next message. And for the first time, they didn't either. There's a particular stillness that comes after surrender. It's not peace, not yet. It's more like a numbness, like a muscle that's finally unclenched after holding tension for so long it forgot what rest feels like. I stopped reaching out. No more little texts just to check in. No more voicemails that ended with call when you can. I deleted their name from the top of my favorites list, not in anger, but because the word favorite no longer felt honest. I moved their birthday reminder into the calendar's background. No alert. Just a date now. And it wasn't an act of revenge. It wasn't defiance. It was mercy. Mercy for myself. Because I couldn't keep handing my heart to a locked door. At first I waited, still half expecting them to notice the silence, to wonder why I hadn't called. But the days stretched on and no call came, no message, nothing. I started to walk differently after that. Slower, yes, but also steadier. I had spent so long leaning toward them, always reaching, always hoping. Without that posture, my body felt foreign. I didn't know what to do with arms that no longer reached, with hands that no longer offered, with a voice that didn't ask. I took a walk through the neighborhood one afternoon, and for the first time I wasn't imagining them beside me. I didn't point out the house they once loved, or the bakery that used to sell their favorite pastries. I just walked. For me. And when I got home, I didn't check my phone. I let the silence be silence. There's grief in letting go of someone who's still alive. It's not like death. There's no funeral, no casseroles, no cards in the mail, just the slow unthreading of what you once shared, and the emptiness that's too quiet to explain. But there's also freedom in it, strange, delicate freedom. I didn't have to craft new ways to be lovable. I didn't have to shrink my needs, dull my longing, pretend I was okay. I didn't have to carry the guilt for a distance I didn't create. They walked away. I simply stopped chasing. I still love them. God, I do. That love is stitched into my bones. It will never unravel. But love doesn't mean staying curled up at the threshold of someone else's silence, begging to be let in. It means knowing when to rise, when to step back, when to hold that love gently and say, "This is mine now." Maybe they'll notice one day. Maybe the silence will stretch long enough that it echoes. Maybe they'll wonder where I went. Maybe they'll scroll through the messages and feel something like regret. But by then, I will have learned how to be full without them. Because the truth is, I've spent a lifetime holding on. And this was the moment I chose to let go. They once told me I was their whole world. I can still hear the words, breathless, bright, full of the conviction that only children possess. I think they were maybe 5, maybe 6. Their little arms wrapped around my waist like they could anchor the sun. "You're my whole world, Mommy," they whispered, as if it was a secret too big for the air. I remember the way it made me feel, like I mattered, like all the laundry and dishes and long nights and aching feet had somehow formed something sacred. I was the sky. I was the stars. I was the entire spinning planet in their eyes. Now I sit in a room that echoes only with memory. The television hums without sound. The air is heavy with the scent of disinfectant and gauge. I keep a journal now, not because I expect anyone to read it, but because I need a place to put the words that no longer have a listener. I write down memories like prayers, like evidence, like reminders that I was once something enormous in someone's life. They don't call anymore. They don't visit. Sometimes I think they don't even remember me beyond the title of Mom, that once powerful name that now feels like a relic from another life. I wonder if I cross their mind when they walk past a store we used to love, or when they hear an old song from the car rides we used to take. I wonder if in quiet moments their heart flickers with something unnamed, something reaching. But I don't reach anymore. I no longer chase their shadow, no longer reread their last message, no longer listen for the chime of my phone hoping it's their name on the screen. My love for them has not lessened, no. It still flows steady and deep. But I have tucked it into a quieter place now, a private unlit room inside me, where it doesn't ache so loudly anymore. I've made peace with the fact that I am no longer their world. Their world is full now, partners, children, jobs, vacations, dinners, friends I've never met. And I have learned slowly, painfully to stop imagining myself back inside it. But I am still a world, my own, not orbiting theirs anymore, but revolving in soft solitude. I read poems. I listen to birds in the morning. I make tea and actually drink it warm. I wear my softest sweater, the one they once called scratchy, and I let it wrap me in the truth of my own presence. There are days I still hurt moments that surprise me with a sudden sting, like catching a splinter of the past. But mostly, there's a stillness now, a softness. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close. Something quieter than bitterness, stronger than regret. They forgot me, but I never forgot them. And maybe one day they will remember. Maybe one day they will say she was everything. Maybe not. Maybe it's too far gone. Maybe the thread has frayed beyond repair. But even so, I remember who I was. I was the arms they ran into. I was the hands that fed them. I was the voice they called for in the dark. And now I am the silence they left behind. But I am not empty. I am not less. I am the keeper of stories no one else knows. I am the witness to a life built quietly, lovingly, without applause. And in that there is something holy,